Hey, welcome back to Common Sense OT Security. Let's check out the Honeywell 2025 Cyber Threat Report. I have included a link in the description where you can download the real thing and maybe even to do some deeper digging. I'm certainly going to focus on the main insights as I see them, just in the interest of giving you my perspective on things, how I approach OT security, and what I can take from those reports that are out there. And that might be different, maybe in a good, maybe in a bad way, from other commentators. So let's check this out. Honeywell Cyber Threat Report. The subtitle is Insights and Actions to Manage Cyber Physical Threat Convergence. I actually don't know what threat convergence is, but I'm definitely interested in the cyber physical threats that they have seen, that they report on. Table of contents, we don't need that. So this is the executive summary where we usually would expect the major insights and action items. Unfortunately, they don't put those in here. It's mostly like a marketing pitch, what you are supposed to do as an executive, I think. Two primary challenges: budget constraints and a complex threat landscape. Excuse me. Well, I don't see that complex cyber threat landscape elaborated on in this report. So I don't know how they come to this conclusion. So I have to guess that it's just a marketing phrase here that you have seen in other reports. The threat landscape is getting more evolved and always getting more complex. I don't see that, but we will get back to that. So just hear me out. And certainly budget constraints, they put this in the executive summaries because they want executives apparently to know, well, guys, you got to put some more money on the table. So this being a marketing pitch, the one thing that surprises me is this last sentence here. No matter the size or scale of your organization, it is always time to better protect your industrial environment. Well, if it's always time, why do it now? Why not then just do it next year or in 5 years? So again, just like with other reports, the executive summary leaves some question marks in my head, but that will not deter us from diving deeper. Update so data, insights, context, blah, blah, blah. This is the first relevant piece here: report source data and methodology. Remember, I told you when looking at any of these reports, before you try to understand their conclusions, etc., first check the validity of the data they are using. And the best way to do that is to check the methodology chapter, if there is one. In this case, it's only a small paragraph, but guess what? It's almost enough. So this report uses intelligence data primarily derived from Honeywell Cybersecurity Solutions from blah, blah, blah to March, unless otherwise displayed. The solutions analyzed 253.2 billion logs, scanned almost 80 million files, and triaged 4,600 events. So, well, in my opinion, I can live with that. So only that second sentence alone, that helps me to understand what we're working here with. So the data that was analyzed and crunched to go into this report, that's good. You remember when I was discussing the Nozomi report, they completely left it open. So they are talking about percentages, etc., but you never knew percentage of what. And in this case, I'm pretty happy with that description. The one thing I find missing here is the number of sites. So that would be of interest for me. But they don't tell us. They tell us in a nutshell, well, it's a shit ton of data. I mean, let's be real, 250 billion logs, well, it's going to be interesting. Next, key findings. So this is basically what I would expect in the executive summary, but maybe that's just me. What are the key findings? Changes in types of threats. Documented 46% increase in ransomware, blah, blah, blah. And this is basically also what they rub in your face here on the right side. That is their key finding, 46% increase in ransomware extortion and almost 2,500 additional reported ransomware victims. I find this rather interesting. And so if they expose that as the key finding, and if you read through the report, it's basically supported, and we'll get to that later on. Now, this leaves me with the question, where are the cyber-physical incidents or attacks? So with their huge database, again, we don't know the number of sites, but when they're telling us about almost 2,500 additional reported ransomware victims, must be a huge database, must be thousands of sites globally. And where is the cyber-physical attack? I can tell you it's nowhere in the report. So even though, let's go back to the title, even though they talk about cyber-physical threat convergence, let's just ignore the convergence. I think that's just marketing talk. Even though they focus us on cyber-physical threats, where are the cyber-physical threats? And apparently nowhere in the report. So if you want to get an idea of how well or how often a particular topic is covered in a particular document, there's a very, very, very simple way to do this nowadays that we have browsers, etc. So what you can do is simply to use Control F and search for the term that you're looking for, cyber physical. And by doing that, we see the term cyber physical appears 6 times in the report, and one of those 6 times is even on the title page. That already tells us we're probably not a lot going on when it comes to cyber physical. On the other hand, when we search for ransomware, we see 67 occurrences. And that already tells you a lot, because at the end of the day, you find, oh, okay, no cyber physical attack or incident reported by Honeywell. However, a shit ton of ransomware attacks. And that already is the major takeaway of this report, which I believe is very important. You don't see that with other reports, such as with the Dragos reports, etc. I don't see the cyber physical in here, but I mean, you know me, I'm happy about that. So I'm happy that no cyber physical attack was reported. I see that a shit ton of ransomware attacks are reported by Honeywell. Okay, so that is very important in my opinion. And then they break it down. This is now the usual lingo that you see in those reports in sectors, how sectors are targeted, and then they talk about individual industries such as food and beverage, etc. That to me does not make any sense. So this is about on that same page how those sectors are targeted. To me, it doesn't make sense because ransomware is opportunistic. It is not targeted. And how would you tell the difference? Well, it's basically very simple. A targeted attack is discriminative. It discriminates between the object that it actually wants to hit and anything else. And it makes a deliberate effort to not go after anything else. So that would imply if you would say, for example, well, the aviation industry is targeted by this new threat actor, or the energy industry, manufacturing, that those threats would make deliberate efforts to not hit anybody else. And as it happens, the poster child for a targeted attack is Stuxnet, where the attackers made sure that when they had infected anything outside of Natanz, even though the target was infected, the actual attack sequence was not executed. That is what it means when you talk about a targeted attack. And ransomware attacks are not targeted, they're opportunistic. The attackers don't care whom they extort. Because, I mean, it would be silly if they would say, well, we have just infiltrated, I don't know, let's just say this particular school bills, the school, the high school, or this university. No, we are not going to extort them because we're only interested in power plants or in manufacturing companies. Apparently, it doesn't make any sense. So this is not what you would see, and therefore this phraseology of certain industries getting targeted by ransomware is, in my opinion, it's just nonsense, and maybe in the interest of hyping it up and scaring people in those industries. Oh man, the hackers are really after us. Not after the universities, they're after us, like the cookie factories. And that doesn't make sense. So what else have we got? Couple of interesting tidbits here, in my opinion. USB risks. I haven't heard about those in other reports. And in my opinion, it's a very important attack vector. Then a couple of additional insights, takeaways, etc. I leave it up to you to actually dig deeper here. And then how they collect all this intelligence, not something that I would be particularly interested in, but it just makes their whole data, I think, credible. So when you check it out, how they have arrived at all those numbers, makes a lot of sense, looks credible to this man. USB plug and play, privilege escalations, etc. Can add it to local security group. So they go into some detail in which I'm not particularly interested here, to be absolutely honest. I'm interested in the big picture. But certainly it's up to you, the reader, to also dig deeper. This, again, is something that I believe is very, very interesting. The almost 1900 distinct threats that they have listed here. And so they're listing the top 100. And I mean, you don't need to spend a lot of time to figure out what this is all about. This is all about Windows malware, plain and simple. So the one thing, for example, that you don't find on this list is Pipedream. That malware that was hyped up so much. Apparently nobody uses it. It doesn't play a role. But then you have all that other stuff, such as the worms and the Trojans, etc., which to me makes sense. Nothing cyber physical, nothing about RTUs and energy management systems, and so anything that would be OT specific. All of those threats affect every Windows box on the planet. I mean, with certain configuration characteristics, obviously, but they do not affect OT devices like PLCs, RTUs, actuators, sensors. No, they don't affect those. And then they go into additional detail about those threats, those malware samples. Again, not something that I'm particularly interested in because I'm interested in the big picture. And again, ransomware, 1900 identified ransomware attacks. That is quite a number from different groups. And how that is spread out. Again, something that you would probably even expect, but given Honeywell's customer base, but that does not imply that those industries are targeted. So it's just that they happen to have attacked the victims within those industries. So that, again, tells me something. 1900 ransomware attacks in this reporting period, as opposed to 0 cyber-physical attacks. And they go deeper and deeper. This is something that I like a lot here, this particular page, because from those threats that expose particular vulnerabilities, they also tell us the affected products. So which products actually have those vulnerabilities. Something that I pointed out was missing in the Nozomi report. If you haven't seen that video, please go to our YouTube channel and check it out. So Nozomi had listed their top 10 vulnerabilities with the CVE identifiers, but did not tell the reader which product was affected. And in that case, it was pretty bizarre, because every single one of those 10 affected Google Chrome. And that is certainly an important piece of information, in my opinion, because that would give you an angle towards protection. And Honeywell did not make that same mistake. So they are calling out the affected products, such as Citrix, SolarWinds, certainly Windows. And that gives you an additional angle towards understanding this whole risk scenario. So a lot of detailed information in here. And that is pretty much it. OT environment risks continue to evolve. So now we're at the conclusions. And I'm a little bit disappointed by their conclusion for a simple reason. So here you read the same boilerplate marketing nonsense again that you read in every report of the OT security vendors, or let's just say OT vendors with security offerings. Okay, the threats are evolving, etc. Well, we know that, but then unfortunately they fail to highlight what is, in my opinion, a really, really important finding that you don't see every so often. And that finding simply is, guys, we have a huge ransomware problem. We don't have a problem with cyber physical attacks in the near sense of the term, luckily, but we have a ransomware issue. And certainly I would be much more interested in learning more about this ransomware risk. For example, tell me more about those USB infections. Was it were they due to contractors, or maybe even OT vendors with their staff bringing malware in on those USB sticks? I think that would be very, very interesting and important to know, because that would give you an angle at protection and prevention. And unfortunately, we don't see that as a conclusion and as a practical tip on what to learn from the data. I can just hope that they will include such data in the next version of their report. And what I would also like to know is, for example, tell me more about the affected systems. Are they actually within the OT space, or for the Purdue fanboys, are they within 3.5 or lower, or are they in layer 4? I think that's very important to know, because what you can see in the report is, obviously, they have also covered some attacks where the whole problem was limited to the IT side. And this is something that I would like to know. Tell us more about any attacks on the OT side. Anything DMZ all over, because that would help us with prevention and protection. Were there any engineering station involved? Was it the HMIs, or what type of PC? Because the one thing that stands out rather clearly, it's about the Windows boxes, guys. Worry about your Windows boxes. Forget about the sensors. Joe Wise, listen to me. I'm sorry to rub in your face. So we don't see the sensors being affected here. We see the Windows boxes being targeted. Take that back. But that apparently that is the objective here, to infiltrate and to infect Windows systems in order to do the whole encryption thing and then to extort the ransom. Tell us more about those Windows boxes. That would be of practical relevance, and I can only hope that we'll see it in upcoming reports. So my bottom line here is I find this report very helpful. It paints a very clear picture that Honeywell unfortunately doesn't expose very well, in my opinion, because you would expect to see such a striking insight, both in the executive summary and then also in the conclusion, where they go back to boilerplate marketing lingo that you can read in any other report. So that is my take on the Honeywell 2025 OT threat report. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Bye-bye.